Hello debaters. So today we'll talk about important parts of debate, specifically about background case. Some of you might wonder, those who are familiar with US debate system might wonder why we have to provide background case because they don't usually require you to provide a background case. But I want you to learn about making background case because in the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, which is British debate system, they actually require background case. And you need to learn this as well because if someday you go to university, you want to represent your university to join World University Debate Competition, for example, they use British system, not US system. So it's good to familiarize yourself with British debate system. The reason why background case is important in British system particularly is because there's a difference in speech time between US and British. The British system has longer speech time compared to US system. So US systems gives you 4 to 5 minutes to explain your case. However, in British, it's usually 7 to 8 minutes. And if you can advance until final round, usually you're given 10 minutes. So you really have to put in a lot of things in your speech so you won't be under time. And the other reason is because related to under time, the philosophy in British system is debaters don't run out of things to say. They usually run out of time. So when a debater speaks under time, way under time, they're usually frowned upon. So you really want to avoid that. Put in as many things as you can in your speech time, during your speech time. And then for negative team, don't be sad because you also have an opportunity to provide a background case. Okay, so it's not just the privilege that is owned by the affirmative team or the pro team. Okay, as negative team, you also have the right to give background case. It's very recommended as well because sometimes we cannot even agree about what happened yesterday. Like you had a fight with somebody yesterday, probably there are two versions about that particular fight, how it actually happened, right? Same thing with world issues or debate issues. There are always 2, 3, 4, 5 versions of how this particular issue arises. So as negative team, you have a right and it's recommended to provide background case of your own version. Okay. And the next thing is there's difference in motion or resolutions. In US, motion in British, resolution in US. There's difference in motion arrangement. In US, you're given a resolution, the same resolution for the whole year. So if you join tournament in US, if you debate for 4 until 5 rounds, you will debate about the same resolutions over and over again, but you have to be ready as both sides, pro or con, first or second team to start speaking, right? If you join another tournament on the same year, you will also debate about the same resolution, basically. In British debate, system is different because the motion changes every round. So they will give you several motions in advance before the tournament, and then they will draw lots for this particular round. Round 1, we'll talk about motion A, round B, talk about motion, round 2, talk about motion B, and blah, blah, blah. So because there's always different motion in every round, you have to give background case to the general audience or to the judges so they will be familiar with what you're going to talk about because they might not be familiar with it. All right, so the advantages of providing background case. First, you provide service to others. Usually there's general audience as well present. So you give them the background story of why you're talking about a certain issue, but it also can benefit your team because you tell them your version of how the issue unfolded. Okay, you also can take advantage of the empty vessel judges. So judges who do their job like they're required to, they have to act like they were empty vessels. So they cannot mix their background knowledge in the judgment, in the judging process. So whatever it is that the debaters say, that's what they take. They can only analyze the logic, but they cannot use their background knowledge to confront your argument. Okay, so you have to take advantage of this empty vessel situation by feeding them the version of your background case. Okay, and then there's also a saying, explain it to me like I'm a 6 years old. It's actually from a famous debater's movie, that you have to be very clear in explaining it to them like they were a 6-year-old kid, the judges, I mean. And then the last one is background case gives you a map of the motion territory. So by understanding the motion, you will be ready with anything the opponents bring. You don't know what the opponents would bring. There are so many sides of this debate that can be explored by them. So by knowing the background case, which I will explain later what it entails, you will be more prepared with anything that your opponents might bring. Now, how to build a background case? You have to analyze the issue, analyze how it arises, who are involved in this issue and the relationships between them, and you also have to analyze the cause and effects. So one thing leads to another thing, and then suddenly A do this and then C reacts to this. You have to be able to pinpoint what actually happens, right? And then clue for you, sometimes it started with that one small but important moment. So if you're familiar with the Arab Spring, where a lot of Arab countries revolt against their governments and sometimes resulted in civil wars and even the emergence of terrorist groups at some points, the Arab Spring was actually started by a very simple thing, like there was police who took away a vegetable seller's cart in Tunisia, and then the reaction of this vegetable seller actually was caught by journalists, and then it prompted mass demonstrations, which was contagious and was copied by or followed by other neighboring countries. So these are the examples of background case. You can check later. I'm sure you're familiar with idebate.org. This is where usually debaters find ideas about arguments. So all of these motions in idebate.org always have background case before they start their arguments. You can check later. Now, your assignment is you have to build pro and con background cases for one of these topics. So Mr. Pitt provides 3 topic options. You can choose whichever you like, but for the motion you choose, you have to provide background case of how this problem arises as pro and as con. So you already lead them to a certain direction before even starting your argument. So you explain to the audience and the judges of how a certain problem arises. And if you remember last week, I think yesterday, Monday or last week, Mr. Pitt attached a sample of debate structure. So there are examples of two versions of background case as pro and con for that particular motion. You can also reread that if you want. So good luck, and I'll be waiting for your submissions.